part 3. I'm Linda from Lányos Handmade, and in part 3 we're going to put everything together. We've got the insides done and the outsides done, so let's put them together. The other thing we get to do is straps, and I love doing straps. There are a few ways to do straps for this bag. There's those little decor straps, right? And this is a two-tone handle, and this is a two-tone strap. I've got one here that is cork, and this is 2 pieces of cork put together, and that's how it's done in the pattern. So there's lots of options, like I said, with this bag. Now, the one thing I want to make sure before you start is the strap anchors. If you're doing the D-ring, that goes on last, right? It's on after your gusset is sewn on, when you're putting everything together. If you're doing the cork tabs and the strap anchors like these ones, they go on your gusset before you sew your outer gusset to your outer layers. In the video, I did it after. So I was sewing this, I was poking this. Ooh, now I've got it all locked in, I can't open it. I was putting this strap anchor on this gusset when it was already put on here. And it's not hard to do because this is pretty, the vinyl is very flexible. But with some things you might run into problems, like the sew-on ones, you'll run into problems. You'll have trouble sticking your sewing machine under this completed outer layer. So it's easiest to put on strap anchors before you sew your gusset to your front and back. But like I did in the video, I managed because I wasn't sewing these, I was just poking them through. So something to keep in mind before you sew up anything is, have I done it right? Have I made it so that I will not be able to put on my strap anchors? So it worked, but it's just a warning to you. So I think that that's all I wanted to say. So let's get sewing. So now it's time to sew on our gusset. We sew on our gusset when we finished our pieces. If you like this back piece, I'm going to keep it plain, but if you like to do something with it yourself, you could put a zipper pocket in it. You could put a slip pocket on it. If you're doing a slip pocket, just make the same pattern piece over it, but make it a couple of inches shorter, and then make a lining for it too. And then you could sew it together just like this pocket is done, and put it on, and then you'd have a pocket in the front and the back. So there's lots of choices with this bag on things you can do. I consider this to be finished though, so I'm going to use this. Make sure you have your center points. I have to stick a little clip in here so I can keep my center all together with my other center. Make sure you have center points on your gusset. Clip it on. As you're coming around the curves, you're going to have to stick little clips in this so you can ease it in. And when you come to the end, it's going to be a little bit longer. It's okay. Some people will be more, some people will be less. It's just depending on how you eased it in. And I like to have that on the gussets because it kind of helps to get your sewing in. I mean, everybody knows that you go along the edge, but not everybody sews the same. So this way it works for everybody to go up and have that little bit extra that we cut off later. Now, if you're doing your lining without a divider pocket, you're going to have 2 lining pieces, and they're going to have zippers in them. And you're going to have a gusset piece that's exactly the same as this one. So these will all be lining, and you'll sew it together, and you'll end up with a really big pocket inside your lining. That way you won't have the divider pocket gusset that you're using. You'll have the outer gusset that you're using. So for now that I'm finished, I'm going to clip these, put little cuts in here, and sew around, and then I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll put the other piece on. So I sewed my gusset onto my front, and flip it through. Check and see if you like how the corners look. You know, you might want to pick out a few stitches or if something got gathered too much or bunched up, but you know, that looks okay. So next I'm going to put it on the back. And remember I said this is the same method that we're going to use when we put our lining in. We use this same method if we don't have a divider pocket. So I'm just going to clip all through here like I did with the other side, and I'll have to make the same little clips all the way. I usually start from the curve and go all the way up to the top. So I'll make those same clips and then I'll sew it, and this will then be done. Except, of course, by then we'll know exactly where this should be cut off. So I'll come back and show you when it's sewn and clipped and stuck on, and we can decide where we're going to make these shorter. So now I've sewn the front and the back on the gussets, and oh, I should put some tape on top of here so it doesn't rub. I am going to turn it inside out. You can always double sew it if you're worried it's going to let loose. You can trim your seam allowances down, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to turn it inside out, and I'm going to glue this seam allowance down, and then I'm going to clip it overnight so it dries. I kind of like how it ends up a bit harder along the frame of it. So it is sewn together. I'm not going to cut the seam allowances down, although you can if you want. And I'm going to turn it inside out here. Make sure I like the looks of my rounded corners. And then when I stick some glue on the inside, I'm going to put the seam allowances towards the gusset, and I'm going to clip it down, but I don't want marks on my vinyl, so I'm going to put a little strip of fabric around here so the marks don't go in my vinyl. So I'll do that and leave it overnight, and I can clip this off now because I know how long this is all extra here. So I'll do some gluing and clipping and leave it to dry. So let me just show you here. This is my D-ring tab, and you'll notice this is not a D-ring, but this just happens to be what I have on hand here. I'm not going to use this on my satchel, but if you wanted to, what I do is I stuff just some cotton, something inside to reinforce it, and I edge stitch the sides, and then I'd put it into my D-ring or rectangle ring, and I just sew it down just to tack it down a little bit. I find if you get really close to up here, it secures it so it doesn't spend its time twisting around, because if you've got a D-ring, sometimes when people wear it, it twists around like this, and then you end up thinking, why is this thing not sitting still? So I do sew close up here, as close as I can with my machine, one row of stitching to hold it. You don't necessarily have to sew the rest of it, it's just whatever you're comfortable with. And then I'm going to take my gusset, pretend this is a gusset, and the D-ring's going to be sewn on here. And it's, I always use 1/2 inch seam allowance, but you don't want it 1/2 inch here, you want to have it a little bit less, because you're just basting it on. And then after the bag is finished, always, we end up with it looking like this, standing up. Okay, now that was for putting the D-rings on. The D-rings go on when you've got your bag put together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these, and these are almost like using the raw edge, you know, if you've got cork or something, D-ring tabs that you sew on. This stuff should all be put on before your gusset's sewn into your satchel. That way you can have your gusset all flat, laid out, and it's easy to sew on the raw edge tab or to put on some hardware like this. And this is what I'm going to use. So basically we end up, I think I've got one bent here already. we end up bending these and marking. I found out it was about 2 apart, was it? Was this about 2 apart? Yep, there's 2. So I'll make sure that I have 2 space between the 2 slots that I draw. And of course I'm going to do one and then measure the other one so I don't get them way far apart neither. So I'll draw my little holes in, and then I'll be able to poke this and this through properly. I will draw my holes properly here too, measuring with this. So marking and poking the little holes in here was pretty easy. It fits well. And then I actually just put this up against here. You'll notice my gusset is sewn in. I made sure it was the right distance down and it was the right distance apart. And I marked the little holes. And I tried a few different ways because in the pattern I said where to put this if it was a raw edge D-ring tab. And that works for that because it's taller, but this is really only 1 inch tall. So I'd prefer to have it right here. So I've got little itsy bitsy holes poked in here, and now I can turn it inside out again. And I can try find my little holes here. They're somewhere. I know they're there because I put it through. I didn't actually put a slit through because I didn't want the holes too big. But I did put in a little dent. Oh, don't go in there too far. I'll never get you out. There's a little dent in there. So this will be good right here. And then on the other side to support it, I can put one of these. There, that supports it. And then I can get these and put them on. It's a lot easier when you don't sew your gusset on. So that'll work really well. And then all I have to do is push these down. And this side's done. I'm going to go over and put it on the, not this hard table, but a soft table. I don't want to damage this on the other side, and push the things. So I'll do that on this side and the other side, and then we can attach the other parts of it. There, that's done. And there's your answer to your question. I couldn't push them in because there's not enough room between the two to hold the length of this. So they were banging into each other. So I've got them on both sides, and they look pretty good. This is all set. Now I have to go get my, oh, there it is. My key holder strap and sew it. Now if I sew it here and flip it over, the raw side's going to show. So I'm going to sew it right sides together and just baste it and flip it over, and then that way when it's turned in, you'll see the nice side showing on the inside. So this gets to be sewed on. Now my bag flap gets to be sewed on too. And we will find the center here and the center there and attach them and just baste this on. And I'm doing it like this to show you that if you do it this way, it's wrong. Because then when it turns in, your bag flap's going to end up being wrong side out. So make sure it's right side together, centered up, and just baste along this top here. So next, bag flap and key holder strap, right sides together. So there you go. I've got my flap on and my key holder strap. And you might have D-rings. Right here I've got these strap anchors. I've tried to tape everything down so I can get it out of the way. And now I'm going to put my lining and my outer layer together. So let's put this, excuse me, our outer layer. inside our lining. And I like to pull it through just a bit, because then I can have lots of room to maneuver. And we're going to line up our centers. I might just get a little pin and put it here. Just as long as it's in the seam allowance, it won't be a problem, but it'll help hold it. And the same in the back. There's my center, there's my center, and there's my center. I'm going to clip it all around, making sure I'm matching everything up. There are side seams here that we can match. And when you're matching them, make one go one way and one go the other way. And there's a front we can match up. Oop, see, I got the wrong side seam. Here's the front side seam. So we'll stick one way and one the other way. Now when you're sewing, you might want to just pin and clip or whatever one section at a time. It'll be a little bit easier than trying to clip the whole thing together. So I'm just going to do one section at a time and sew around the top here. And then after, we can turn this through the hole. So I'll continue pinning and clipping, and then I'll sew a section and show you what I've ended up with. So there you go. I've got my front sewn. Now I can do across the gusset here, and I'll check it again, and then after I can start doing the back. One section at a time. Okay, it's all sewed around now. It's nice and smooth on both sides, even though it looks like a rumpled mess. I can feel in there that the only thing I sewed through was 2 layers, the vinyl and the cotton lining. If you want, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to sew a second row just to try and flatten it out and keep it still. And then I'm going to turn it. So after I sew the row, I'll come back and I'll show you how to turn it. So now turning it. It's not going to be that bad, because my layer here is quite soft. Now before we tuck this inside, let's sew up the bottom. I'm going to measure because I want to make sure that the seam allowance is right in the middle here and line up the middle here. You can sew it with the sewing machine if you want, but I'm going to use a ladder stitch, which pretty much ends up like looking like sewing. I'll show you what it looks like when I do it. But right now I'm going to measure this and press it and pin it together so I know exactly where the seam allowance is. So a ladder stitch. I'm going to put this up this way because it drives me bananas when I hear that clanking all the time. So maybe I won't clank as much. Now you can see I've folded exactly where my seam allowance is. Okay, let me continue here because the battery died. He missed me starting here. I didn't notice, but I poked the thread through so that it is hidden here, and it came out from this way. And we just, which side am I on? This side, so let's poke it in this side. And I like to make just a small little stitch so that it looks like it's sewed together. And I like to make it as straight across as I can. That's where the ladder part comes in. And when I'm pulling it, I pull it tight, but then I loosen it by spreading it apart a little bit. And then that way it makes it look like it was sewed with a machine. So I'm just going to continue on with this, and then after I'll show you how I stuff everything back in the bag. And then we can make some straps. Okay, let's see if we can turn this inside without planking it too much. I did sew the bottom. And if you pull it open here, you can't really see too much of it, but we're going to shove this inside. And we have it in, and now we have to clip and top stitch the top here. I'm going to pull out some of these loose threads here that are sticking out. So I'm just going to clip this down and top stitch all along the top. When I do it, I want to make sure that my bag flaps sit in the right way too. I want to top stitch this down along here. Okay, and then after we will be finished the bag part of it, and we can do our straps. All done. Top stitched around the top. We've got our pockets all sorted out. Now I just have to make a couple of straps. So here's the top of my adjustable shoulder strap. It's going to be two-tone. It's going to have this on top and the vinyl on the bottom. And I like this kind because the vinyl sometimes stretches and this will stop it from stretching. But we want to have this be, I think this is about, what did I look at last time? About 5/8 wide. Yeah, it's 5/8 wide. The first side I folded over 1/2 inch. The other side I folded over to meet it. You can do it however you like, just as long as you get both long edges inside. So I'm going to sew down both sides to help hold it down because it might end up popping up as I'm making it. And here's my strip of vinyl that goes underneath. The only preparation I had to do for this was I didn't have a piece long enough, so I sewed it together. And that'll work pretty good. Then after I'm going to fold the edges to meet the inside, just like with the top piece. Except this time I'm going to make sure I get the center. I mean, sometimes it's easy to fold it in and get the center right, but other times it's nice to have some double-sided tape in there. And put it down the center. And then you can squish the sides in. Then after I'm going to sew this on, oops, not that side, that's the wrong side. Sew this on top of that. So I have no double-sided tape. So I'm just going to clip this down and then clip my top piece on top of it and hope that I can do it without making a big mess. Lucky me, I found some Wonder Tape. Just enough to make it. It sticks a lot better this way. There you go. Worked a lot better with my double-sided tape. So I just fold this over in the back here and I sew across and down. And you can go opposite direction too if you think you're going to end up with a twisty strap. When I get to this end, I'll fold this under too. So I've done my edge stitching to put the two layers together, the top and the bottom. And I folded one end, threads everywhere, into this slider. Now I'm going to put the other end through one of these swivel hooks. And you want to make sure that they're all on the right side here. Then I'm going to come back with the end again. Stick it all the way through the slider. And again, you want to make sure everything's sitting on the same end. And I will attach the other end to my swivel hook. Now, if I want to sew this down, I have to make sure I have lots of space to sew. If you're just putting a Chicago screw or a rivet in, you might not need that much space, but I think I usually say about 1.5 inches. So that's where we have to secure everything. And just check before you finish, everything's on the right side. You haven't gotten any twisted. It's going to look good. We can fasten these here and here, and then we can move on to our short strap. So here's my short strap done. In the pattern, I say you could put 2 layers of cork together, or you could put 2 layers of vinyl together. You'd have to cut 2 of these and fold the corners in. I kind of, if you want there no raw edges, that's kind of how I like it, because if you have 2 of these vinyl pieces and put them together, both sides will look the same. With this one, I like having the shorter one on here. I like the fabric print accent. So there's lots of choices on how you can make your short strap. So this, I just want to measure it. This one, since it's a short strap, you know, you choose, but if I'm sewing it, I still would like to have 1.5. And if I'm sticking rivets in it, I'd probably go with maybe 1 1/4 or 1 if I could get it to fit. And then I have to put the swivel hook on the other side too. And this is what I mean about always making sure that you have your hardware on the right side together, because you don't want to find out that you've done a long strap and one of these sliders on the other one is facing the wrong way. So it's always good to check, put it all together and check it before you actually put your rivets in. But that's all that's left to do on this one, and then we're finished. So how did that go? I hear my husband coming in, so it's going to get noisy any minute now, so I'm going to be quick. So I would love to see how your Sage Satchels turned out. Everybody takes a pattern and makes it their own, and what they do with it is just incredible. Whoops, lost one. What they do with it is just incredible. So please make sure you drop a photo or a comment or questions either down below or in the Lányos Handmade Pattern Party group. And oh yeah, if you're a member of the group, the Lányos Handmade Pattern Party group on Facebook, all members automatically get 10% off code for all Lányos Handmade patterns. So, you know, even stop by for that. You might find something you like. And like I said, I would really like to see what you make. So thank you for watching, and make sure you like and follow and subscribe so you can catch our next project. I've got a couple of videos, little shorts that are just some quick tips and products that I've tried out recently, and you know, I think you might be interested in them. I keep getting distracted because Sophie's staring at me from the corner of the room, so I guess it's time to say goodbye, and thanks for watching.